we are also recording, and the recording will be available for people who aren't able to make tonight's meeting.
So let's begin. Let's start with a welcome. We're just going to ask you to please introduce yourselves in the chat. If you could also share your neighborhood or any affiliation that you'd like to share, we welcome you to include that. For the sake of time, we won't do introductions. We'll jump right in. As you can see, the agenda is in the chat, and we have a really full evening planned, but that's great because there's going to be lots of information shared and really moving this process along in our Springfield Neighborhood Investment Plan work. So I'm going to begin. I will at least introduce myself. I'm Beatrice Dewberry. I'm the Community Building and Engagement Director. I'm sorry, I'm the Community Building and Engagement Director at Wayfinders. And Wayfinders has been contracted by the City of Springfield and Pioneer Valley Planning Commission to work on the engagement process for this work. And that has been fun and exciting. I'm going to give you a little share of what we've done. We started back in February with a community kickoff meeting at the Mason Square Library. Since that time, we've had additional community kickoff meetings in other neighborhoods. And the neighborhoods that we're focused on are the Maple High Six Corners neighborhood and the Mason Square neighborhoods, which are 4. That's Bay, McKnight, Old Hill, and Upper Hill. The engagement process has also included several mapping workshops. Some of you have been on those. That was an exciting way to join in person and really look at our neighborhood maps and circle and identify areas that we knew we wanted to see some form of development or work happen there, and really brainstorm together as community. From the mapping exercise, we've done additional surveying. So we've had lengthy surveys that were very detailed surveys that went out to residents as well. More than 100 people took that opportunity to give their feedback. And then we did additional macro surveys. So those were more simple surveys that really asked people, what is that one big thing you'd like to see happen in your neighborhood? And more than 160 folks responded to that as well. We're now continuing on with the engagement process with this, taking all this great feedback and really working to prioritize what residents want to see in their neighborhoods most. And I'm now going to pass it to Kat.
Thanks, Bea. As Bea said, this is a city project. We're going to be moving on to a group of other neighborhoods in the coming months, but we're going to be hearing from the city staff who are here today from the Office of Planning and Economic Development on the programs that they have currently. And then you're going to be participating in a number of polls to prioritize which actions you want to see most included in the neighborhood investment plans. We want to be clear that none of the proposed solutions are going to be eliminated from the plans. Every solution that has been discussed, all the ideas are going to be included, but the rankings will be shared in terms of who has participated in the number of opportunities to poll. We also want you all to know that we are recording this and we are taking the Zoom polls and turning them into SurveyMonkey surveys, and we're sharing them out after each meeting so that your friends and family who aren't able to be here tonight can still go to the website in the link that we've been putting in the chat and still participate in the polls. In addition, we have been meeting with the neighborhood councils in all 5 neighborhoods consistently since February. And once the plan, once we have the list of prioritized solutions, we are going to be presenting a proposed final draft of the plan to each neighborhood council. They're going to be inviting all their residents to come to a public meeting to comment, to weigh in. We'll be making additional edits, and then the plans will be finalized. In addition, if there's any, if you don't see a solution that you think is important when you participate in the polls tonight, you can put your ideas into the chat. You can also communicate with us through our emails, which are available on the project website as well. And we have a number of city staff here tonight who you'll be hearing from momentarily, and they'll be introducing themselves then.
Yeah, I want to share one other thing. Through the engagement process, we have touched more than 500 people. So we really have put in a lot of effort to get feedback from residents. we really need your help as residents and members of the community to help us spread the word and let folks know these are great opportunities to learn about what's happening in Springfield, as well as weigh into on what they want to see happen over the next 10 years. So we encourage you to invite others, share the emails you're getting from us. So we really want to spread the word and get more folks engaged.
So I think at this time, we're going to turn it over to Tim Sheehan, the Chief Development Officer for the City of Springfield, is here with his staff. Brian Connors, the Principal Planner on Economic Development, Alvin Allen, Kathy Wono, Wilson Darbin, Tina Quagliato, Sullivan. I'm not sure who all is going to be speaking, but take it away, Tim.
Thanks, Catherine. First of all, I wanted to thank you, all of you, for taking the time out of a summer evening to spend some time with us to hear about what's going on in your neighborhood and to help us better understand the needs of your neighborhood. As Beatrice said, spreading the word and, getting information back to us is critically important so that, we can make sure that everybody's interests are represented in the investment plans that are coming forward for neighborhood development. So it's a critical that, your friends, your family, those that are your neighbors are all participating in the process as much as possible. I understand there's time constraints for everyone, but, please be sure to let them know that they can watch the tape of this, and that, if they have issues, there's certainly, a vehicle for them to get those concerns to us so that we can certainly include them in our reporting. Not everybody on my team is going to be speaking this evening. We would be here all night and we wouldn't necessarily hear from you, which is one of the fundamental reasons why we're here. But Brian, I believe that you had a short PowerPoint in which to share with the group, and I'll let you do that now. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Good evening, everybody. Thanks, Catherine B. Good to see everybody. Let me get this going here. We've got about 12, 13 slides to share with you. Basically, the point of this is to kind of talk about our existing programming and kind of the typical things that our offices work on from a day-to-day basis. Just to kind of serve as a baseline of the things that are already occurring and continue to occur in the near term. So I wanted to start off with a couple of slides regarding TDI, which I think a lot of people on this call are familiar with. TDI, Mason Square District, started up last year. And I wanted to put this slide up because it's extremely timely, as there is apparently a workshop happening tonight on this program at 6 o'clock. So this is for small businesses. It's a TDI activation grant of up to $25,000. The URL is there on the slide. We can share this more broadly, but it has been shared through a number of resources. Importantly, the deadline is July 31st of this year, and small businesses can use this for the three items you see in the bottom left: digital media, web presence, brand design, placemaking. So this is some funding that's coming through TDI with support from MassMutual to get on the streets to help support small businesses. So there's a workshop today at 6. There's another one tomorrow, and there's more information on the website that we can share with you. Also, another kind of neat item from TDI through some of the meetings with Josh, the fellow, and the community was placemaking concepts, and there was some desire to look at the string lighting that's been very popular in the downtown on Worthington Street and Main Street. And so it's been really kind of looked at for the Ben Swan Way, which is pictured there. The city's identified grant funding that can be used for this. So we're starting to look at this pretty closely. Alvin, who's on the call, is working on this. So we're getting quotes and starting to put that together, but that could really be quite a placemaking activity right in the heart of the square. Community development, which is one of tonight's topics. This is kind of community development we could spend an hour on, honestly, with the amount of programming that comes out of our annual entitlement grant through CDBG. Kathy Bono, who kind of leads that process, is on the line. Kathy, I don't know if you want to say a few words about the annual action plan process.
The city's awarded an entitlement every year. We're required to do a 5-year consolidated plan. We are currently starting year 4 of the 5-year plan we have in place right now. We ask for public input in every year in January of how you'd like us to see those dollars. Our average entitlement is about 3.7 million. And as you can see, some of the spending categories that we spend a lot of money on infrastructure, sidewalks, parks, public service activities. Unfortunately, we're capped at 15%. So we cannot spend as much as we'd like to in public service activities, but we also fund housing, nonprofit, rehab, arts, graffiti removal, code enforcement, and of course, economic development. But we encourage everyone to participate in January when we do start our plan, because our plan is due to HUD by May 15th. And we do include all the input we receive from the public in our plan.
Thanks, Kathy. Yeah, so we're starting basically our new year of an action plan as of July 1st. And a lot of the things we talk about in our programming are funded through this funding, such as the storefront program. So this is for small businesses, ground floor retail, up to $25,000 per storefront, CDBG funded. For exterior improvements, what you see there is a perfect example, something that looks pretty tough. That we can invest dollars in to open it up again for small business uses. It's not for interior, it's not for structural repair, it's really for that ground floor streetscape look on a small business. So we've got all of the guidelines on our economic development website. If you're interested in this program, shoot Wilson a message. He's on the call right now, and he can get you all of that information. Another small business program that we fund is called Rise Up Springfield. It's a program that we run through the Interrise platform, which is a national organization working in cities across the country. They have a program called the Streetwise MBA, which is a 6-month curriculum to help small businesses develop a growth plan. So we've been working with them since 2019. We've had several cohorts with them. Pictured is the most recent cohort. You can see you may know some of the companies in Springfield here that have gone through this program. And one of the interesting things I always find with this program is the mix of businesses we get. So you can see logos there of La Fiorentina, who's been around for 100 years, with So Loud, which is a newer restaurant from Page Boulevard near Springfield, and how those businesses interact with each other peer-to-peer, a new business sharing information with an older business, and how they work with each other and learn from each other on both ends is really, these businesses build a tight bond over 6 months. So it's really been a successful program. We partnered with Valley Venture Mentors in the most recent cohort, who administered the curriculum, and we utilized their space. And now Interrise is also partnering with the Urban League. So there is a new cohort that is expected to start shortly with the Urban League. Urban Leagues throughout Massachusetts, but Urban League of Springfield as well. And interested businesses can apply at the website below. Another CDBG use that we've utilized is for public art. Mayor Sarno decided back in 2017 that he wanted to see more of this funding dedicated to public art, and initiated our program funding. In our first year in 2017, we funded 1 mural and 1 sculpture, both of which are still up and alive and doing well. And since that time, there are now over 40 murals that have been installed in the past 6 years with COVID in the middle of all that. So an incredibly successful program. I think everybody in the call is pretty familiar with what Commonwealth Murals and Fresh Paint does. They, not only do they paint murals, but they really bring a community process to it, where people are on the ground from the neighborhoods, contributing to the painting, and being a part of the whole process. City Mosaics, another organization in the city that's been very active, putting up murals. They're doing one right now in Stern Square. So it's really become kind of a thing in Springfield in terms of mural installation, and something that we have been happy to support and really help get off the ground. Totally different end of the spectrum. Brownfields redevelopment. Brownfields are basically properties that you suspect are contaminated or may be contaminated with environmental pollution contamination. So the city, just actually last Friday, Wilson and I were there to accept a $500,000 grant from the EPA that the city applied for. And that will be utilized to test sites throughout the city. But Mason Square and Six Corners were one of our target areas that we identified in our grant application. And so basically what happens, we utilize this a lot for properties that the city might take for tax title. And before we put it out to the private market, we want to give developers a picture of what the property is in terms of contamination. And we really want to get at those properties that neighbors and residents think could be a public safety, a safety hazard, and might be contributing to poor health in the community. So we look for certainly feedback from residents on what properties that they think might be an issue that we should be looking at. And we'll be reaching out to neighborhoods as we move forward with that funding. We also do work with Mass Development and Brownfields funding. So actually the site that's pictured there with the rusty fence, I mean, that's like a classic brownfield shot there, rusty fence, a pile of debris is an Indian Orchard. And so we've actually moved forward on that site through the Redevelopment Authority in redeveloping a portion of it for a greenhouse, hydroponic greenhouse with Wellspring Collaborative. And they are looking to expand further onto the site, but the site has environmental conditions. So we are out there now doing testing to prepare that site for hopefully an expansion of that food use. And in terms of food access, that's a topic for tonight as well. Actually, the bottom left is that hydroponic greenhouse in the orchard, an actual real picture, not a rendering. So that's what's happened there, and they are looking to expand that. But upper left, right on Walnut Street, gardening the community. Again, that's another photo that looks like a rendering, almost amazing work that happened there. But this also talks about, different roles that our department gets involved in projects. So that was city-owned property that we were able to transfer over to gardening the community as part of that project, much like we did in the example in Indian Orchard. And we continue to talk to gardening the community on their needs in the neighborhood for future growth. Couple of other food-related projects that are going on. The city helped fund through ARPA, the AC Produce expansion that you've seen get sort of rebuilt in recent months. And so they're putting a whole new front facade on, whole new front door. They're expanding their parking area, which will be a huge success for, certainly the neighborhood in the South End. And then a little bit newer here, J.C. Williams Center has been funded. And one of their projects is to partner with Serve Food Kitchen to do a community kitchen at the J.C. Williams Community Center. So that's something that could help provide a resource for the food truck industry and the smaller food industry in Springfield and in the neighborhood. So we're excited about seeing that project move forward as well. Bike share has become a staple in Springfield and throughout the region. Alvin's been working on this. I'll let him jump in on the status. People have asked about the bikes this year. And Alvin, you want to tell us a little bit what's going on there?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. So the Valley Bike Share Program is made up of 10 communities, Springfield being included, as well as the University of Massachusetts. So the 10 communities are within the Hampden and Hampshire County area. The program has existed for about 3 years now. In its third year, we're now having complications with our bike operator. So therefore, the system is now down for 2023. However, the consortium of cities and towns are working diligently to ensure that we can get a new bike operator and we can get the bike system back up and running for 2024. Within the city of Springfield, we have 14 existing stations. We're looking to expand for 4 more stations, 2 of which would be within this target area, Mason Square and Maple High Six Corners. The 2 stations being within Ruth Elizabeth Park, which is along Walnut Street within the Six Corners neighborhood, as well as Samuel Bolden Park, which is along Wilbraham Ave and King Street. So we're looking to add those 2 stations hopefully by next year. But so that's where we are. The system is down this year, but we are looking to get back up and running hopefully in 2024.
Thank you, Alvin. Yeah, and the system in Springfield's usage of it has been, pretty strong. So when they look at the metrics, Springfield has shown up as one of the highest uses throughout the entire system and highest in terms of miles ridden. So it's something that we look forward to bringing back in 2024. UMass Design Studios. This is something some of you may have participated in. The students from the Landscape Architecture and Regional Planning Department of UMass every year work on studio projects in a different neighborhood in Springfield, and we've done that for about 20 years here in the city. And at the end, they produce a report. And this year, they were working in Mason Square as well as Indian Orchard. So this report is actually hot off the presses. We just received this at the end of last week. I don't even think it's on the LARP website yet, but if somebody's interested, we will get you a copy as soon as we can, and we'll get it posted up on our website as well to see what the students came up with through their processes in Mason Square. And that, these are academic exercises and great for the students, but sometimes these projects actually help us and help the neighborhoods determine the things that they want to see, and they actually turn into real projects. And a great example of that is the Six Corners intersection. So this actually started as a UMass design project, and what you see across the top is kind of the evolution of the Six Corners design, which started with the very left, which was one of these studio projects with students sitting at the Mason Wright retirement community with residents, and residents saying, we need to figure out a new solution for this intersection. And that upper left was the first thing that happened and came out of those meetings. And then it developed into the final report of the UMass studio project. And then we had the tornado, and residents brought that up in the tornado planning process, and it showed up there again. And so we went in search of state funding and received a grant, and then that's helped us get the engineered designs, and ultimately, as you all know, successfully implemented the project, which has certainly transformed the intersection from a place that was one of the highest crash rates in the region to a much safer intersection. So that's what we got. We've got a whole team of folks here. If there are any questions, let us know.
Thank you, Brian. That was great. We do have time for a few questions. We have a pretty tight schedule today because we have a lot of polls that we want you to weigh in on your priorities. But if people have questions, we have about 5 minutes where the city staff could take questions from people.
Yeah, is there a way to get a copy of that PowerPoint that Brian just did?
Yes, we'll be posting the PowerPoint up on the project website. Sure, one of my colleagues will put the project website in the chat momentarily. But you can get to the project website off PVPC's website and also off the city's website. And we do have PowerPoint from the first meeting on housing, as well as the recordings of the previous meetings. Any other questions? If not, we can go into the polls, and then we do have 10 minutes at the end as well if questions occur. And I do want to encourage everybody, the polls you'll see, they're sorted by the solutions are sorted by topic. If you think under the topic, if you don't see an idea that you feel is important, please write it into the chat. You can raise your hand and voice it, or I'll put my email in and you can also email it to me. We do want to capture all your ideas. And if not, we can go ahead and start the first poll, Kyle. And just to remind everybody, the focus is on economic community development, as well as food access and arts and culture.
And for the sake of accessibility, Catherine, could you read the poll questions, please?
Yes. So economic development and business, the category here is business job creation. So we want you to select 2 solutions that you would like to see prioritized. And again, if none of them are right for you, put your own solution in the chat. The first one we have is local businesses and community-based organizations work with Putnam Vocational School on an internship program to expand job opportunities in the district. The second one is the city, local community development corporations, and community-based organizations collaborate to improve Black and Brown-owned business support. The third one is the city, with anchor institutions and local community development corporations, research and advance a new job training program and incubation center for small businesses. And this is related to the loss of the MCDI center years ago. The fourth one is colleges work with local restaurants and businesses to accept student ID debit cards for transactions. Does anybody have any questions or comments on, or not comments, but any questions or clarification for the 4 options? So what we would like you to do for the poll is select 2 out of the 4 that you would like, that you think are more pressing priorities for action. Again, none of these are going to disappear from the plans. All the ideas will be included, but they will be ranked based on your input.
And just a reminder, they'll also, Catherine, am I correct? They'll be up on the website after this meeting as well. So folks that couldn't join in the meeting can take those polls and give us their feedback afterwards.
I just want to encourage folks to include your email in the chat as well. We can add you to all of our email list and share out the polls, as well as give you an opportunity to share with others.
Thank you.
How are we doing on poll responses, Kyle?
We're looking pretty good. We got 14, 15. So I think we should be able to close it up here in just a moment. So take another 20 seconds or so to share your 2 thoughts, your 2 priorities for business and job creation. And all right, I'm going to close the poll and then share the results. And here we go.
And again, for the sake of accessibility, I'll read off those results. It looks like our top poll choice was the city, local community development corporations, and community-based organizations collaborate to improve Black and Brown-owned business support. That had 60% of vote getters here. And then our second top choice, colleges work with local restaurants and businesses to accept student ID debit cards for transactions. And again, we just want you to know, as Catherine mentioned, no item goes away. These are drawn from feedback gathered in all of those meetings we mentioned earlier that have been held to get feedback. And so those other items presented will not go away as well. This is just to prioritize. So thank you. Any questions?
All right,
All
let's
right.
go to the second poll.
Here we go.
So this category is under still economic and community development, but it's focused on food access. We'd like you to select 3 solutions that you would like to see prioritized in this case. And we have 5 choices. So you're selecting 3 out of 5. The first one is the city, neighborhood councils, and local community development corporations collaborate to recruit more sit-down restaurants along State Street with outdoor seating dining. The second one is the city conducts an inventory of existing restaurants and vacant available buildings that could be used as restaurants. The third one is the city with local community development corporations and businesses promote and expand use of vacant empty lots for food trucks. The fourth choice is the city and local community development corporations explore facilitating a food hall or food market that's like the Parkville Market in Hartford, Connecticut. And then the fifth choice is the city and mass development advance a new commercial kitchen space to assist food-related entrepreneurs. And Opalia, are you seeing it now or do you still not see it? No, you're still not seeing it. Huh, did you see the first one? That's weird. Is everybody else able to see it? Huh,
I'm seeing it here. It seems to be popping up fine here.
okay. So I apologize for that. I think we'll have to make sure we send you the Survey Monkey. Once we turn this into a poll using the app Survey Monkey, we will send it to you. So I apologize for that.
Yeah.
Are there any?
If you could put your email in the chat. And I'll make
Okay.
sure to review it and send that to you.
We still have about 45 seconds. It looks like there's 1 or 2 people still waiting to share their selections. Okay. Last call will be closing in 5 seconds. Okay. And here are your results.
Okay, and it looks like our top item here, city and local community development corporations explore facilitating a food hall / market like the Parkville Market in Hartford, Connecticut, with 77% of folks selecting that item. Second, actually we have a tie for second, but city, neighborhood councils, and local community development corporations collaborate to recruit more sit-down restaurants along State Street with outdoor seating and dining. 62% of folks selected that. And the city with the local community development corporations and businesses promote and expand the use of vacant or empty lots for food trucks. So there is a tie with that. Any questions? And we are capturing your comments in the chat. I know McKnight CDC, I'm not sure who that is commenting in the chat regarding the polls. So we are capturing that as well.
All right, right away, we went right into the next one. So economic development, this is related to projects. So we'd like you to select 3 of the solutions that you would like to see prioritized, advancing specific new projects in the district. The first one is the city and the Massachusetts Department of Transportation advance the implementation of the McKnight Highland Rail Trail as both a tourist attraction and a pleasant and efficient way for residents to get downtown. The second option is to close Ben Swan Way to vehicular traffic to create a town center for the Mason Square neighborhoods, including improvements to the streetscape and investments in storefronts and outdoor seating. The third option is the city conducts a market feasibility study for redevelopment of the former MCDI site. The fourth option is the city with the neighborhood councils and existing businesses focus on upgrading infrastructure at the One Stop Plaza. And the fifth choice is the city work with UMass and other planning schools to complete preliminary design for the Mill River Greenway, including a river walk and connection to the Connecticut River Park for recreation and attracting tourists to the district. As Brian said in his presentation, the Six Corners was an idea that emerged in 2008 out of a UMass study. Maybe could you mute yourself if you're Kyle or B, could you help by muting that person? Thanks. And so again, that's how planning studies do actually turn into projects in some cases. So are there any questions about any of that? If not, please go ahead and take the poll. And again, this one, we're asking for three solutions that you would like to see prioritized.
Catherine, is there any more you could give on the upgrading infrastructure at One Stop in terms of what that would mean? Is that a storefront comment, or is that about the site itself, or?
It was about focusing, the idea was to focus that as a place for more concentrated economic development, basically. Yeah. Recognizing that there are successful businesses there, but that would be a place for targeted economic development.
And just to add, improving some of when infrastructure, like the literal infrastructure, the parking access and access to the space. I know Catherine and Kyle had some community conversations with business owners there who said they are thriving and doing well. And so really it's developing out the space more fully.
All right, are we done on those polls, Kyle?
Yeah, I think we're ready to close it and share some results.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're tied for first place. Close Ben Swan Way to vehicular traffic to create a town center for the Mason Square neighborhoods, including improvements to the streetscape and investment in storefronts and outdoor seating. That was our top vote getter, along with city work with UMass and other planning schools to complete preliminary design for the Mill River Greenway, including a river walk and connection to the Connecticut River Park for recreation and to attract tourists to the district. And close third is city and Mass DOT advance the implementation of the McKnight Highland Rail Trail as both a tourist attraction and pleasant and efficient way for residents to get downtown. Thank you.
All right, so we do have 11 polls, so we got to keep going. Thank you again for your participation this evening. Okay, so this category is again still in the category of economic community development, but focusing on design and infrastructure. So in this case, you get to select 4 solutions because we have so many options. So there's 4 out of 6. The first one is that the city examine existing programs to renovate, update storefronts, and improve overall aesthetics of the streetscape, making a more pleasant pedestrian environment in Mason Square neighborhoods. I'm not exactly this phrasing is a little bit confusing to me. I believe the focus was to invest additional funds in that program. It's one of the programs that Brian explained is already existing. So I think you can interpret that one as to continue investment in that existing program. The second option is that the city conduct a master planning of the district to facilitate comprehensive renewal. Again, this is the whole district. We're doing neighborhood investment plans by each neighborhood, but the idea is to do a master plan of the district for comprehensive renewal. The third option is the city consider adding waste and recycling receptacles along sidewalks to assure a safe, clean pedestrian environment. The fourth solution proposed is that the city with anchor institutions and local community development corporations, research and advance additional bank financial institution lending programs to assure neighborhoods that have access to expanded bank services 5 days a week, 7 days a week if possible. The fifth option is that the city would pilot a community information kiosk in the district at the Mason Square Branch Library to assure residents, including businesses, are aware of city funding and other capacity building opportunities. And then, I'm sorry, there's 7 choices. The 6th choice is the city would create design guidelines for redevelopment, for example, limiting drive-through fast food chains or promoting walkability, but doing it through design guidelines that would be required for new development. And then the final option is residents and the neighborhood council and local community-based organizations advocate for community access to affordable, reliable, fast internet as a public utility. So that's a lot of choices. I know, probably too many for you all to sort through, but we need you to pick 4 of those 7.
And we're only waiting for a couple more folks, so if we could take the last 20 seconds or so to share your 4 selections, we'll report back.
And again, if anybody's joined late, we're not going to lose any of the content. It's just we're doing a prioritization to assist with investments in the neighborhoods going forward.
So we're closing the last of the economic development polls. And here are your results.
Ah, interesting.
Okay, and our top selection here, city consider adding waste and recycling receptacles along sidewalks to assure a safe and clean pedestrian environment. Here. Second selection, residents and neighborhood councils and local community-based organizations advocate for community access to affordable, reliable, fast internet access and internet as a public utility. And our third is city pilot community information kiosk in the district at Mason Square Branch Library to assure residents, including businesses, are aware of city funding and other capacity building opportunities. Were we doing 4? I can't recall, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, and our fourth.
Well, just the top. You're just doing the top couple. I think that's
Okay,
good.
so those were the top 3 of 7.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think you did say 4.
You had to pick your top 4, but we weren't necessarily going to read the top 4 vote getters. Okay, so this one is easier. You only have to do 2 out of 3. And this is related to food access. So I think we're all aware that there's talk of the need for expanded food access in the district. So the first one is the city, neighborhood councils and residents advance plans to secure a developer to fund a full service supermarket to meet the needs of the Mason Square and Maple High 6 Corners neighborhoods. So full service. The second option is the city, neighborhood councils, residents recruit an alternative Springfield market with vendor stands for a wide variety of items, building on models from Boston, Baltimore, and other cities. So more of a market approach. And then the third choice is city continues to recruit a small grocery store, express store in the food desert, demonstrated food deserts. So pick 2 out of those 3 in terms of priorities that you would like to see included in the neighborhood investment plans.
We have most of our responses in. If you want to take another 20 seconds, share your 2 solutions for grocery store options. Okay. Well, this one's ready to close and we'll share the results.
Okay, top
Very-
vote getter. The city neighborhood councils, residents advance plans and secure a developer to fund a full service supermarket to meet the needs of the Mason Square and Maple High Six Corners neighborhoods. And that was 92% of our vote takers here. Second is the city neighborhood councils and residents recruit an alternative Springfield market with vendor stands for a wide variety of items, building on models from Boston, Baltimore, and other cities. So a smaller version market in the neighborhood, and that was with 62% of vote getters. But before we move on, I know this is a lot of polling. I just want folks to know, please take space if you need to ask questions and seek clarification. Thank you, Brian, for doing that at that last poll. But we want to encourage you to feel comfortable doing that. And also just a reminder that these poll questions or findings came directly from those assorted meetings that we've held since February and survey gathering. So they're not things that we went into the back room to come up with. They are what residents in the neighborhoods have shared with us. And this is an attempt to consolidate and really present that data in a different way and get additional feedback so we can prioritize.
And also to be clear, these recommendations, I was at the McKnight Neighborhood Council last night and people were saying, they're pretty broad recommendations. And as those of you who've worked with the city know, an idea takes a while to advance. So a big idea like, work on a full line grocery store, of course, the site has to be identified, it has to be developed, abutters have to be consulted. There's a whole lot of work that has to happen. So right now we're prioritizing out of 150 ideas, we're trying to identify top priorities. Then there will be a lot of work fleshing out each idea, who could be the lead implementer, where's some potential funding. So all of that additional detail will be in the neighborhood investment plans for the top priorities. So this one is another long one. You get to choose 4 of these solutions. So these are all about food access. The first one is the city consider planting fruit trees as public orchards in parks. For example, what's already done at Johnny Appleseed Park. The second choice is the city and local community development corporations and community-based organizations expand farmers markets in the district, possibly at Blunt Park. The third choice is the city and the Springfield Food Policy Council, local community development corporations, and other community-based organizations expand and add additional community gardens at churches and places of worship with open space. The fourth choice is the city consider creating a Mason Square agricultural district to encourage use of land for farming. Excuse me. So that would be an overlay district in the Mason Square area. The fifth option is the city, local community development corporations, and anchor institutions support more mobile farmers markets at spaces where feasible. The 1, 2, 3, 4. The seventh choice is the city, local community development corporations, and the Springfield Food Policy Council explore a free fridge program. This exists in Philadelphia and Worcester, which is where there's fridges in public places filled with food that people can take as needed. And then the final choice is the city, local community development corporations, and the Springfield Food Policy Council explore how to use non-buildable sites for expanded food access, gardens, etc. So you get to pick 4 of these 7 in terms of the top solutions to advance food access, not related to a grocery store, since you already did that.
Rochelle, I see you unmuted. Did you have a question?
I was just trying to figure out how I scroll back up. I think I selected more than 4. Let's see. Okay, maybe I didn't. All right.
Thank you.
So we're at 12 responses, so just a few more people are left. Take the next few seconds to submit your top 4. and we'll report out.
Stephen? See you, Brianna.
Yes, evening, everyone. Quick question. I forgot which one it was because I've already submitted, but the one that comes after the church for creating a garden in the area, that also will need to have a butter's approval and so forth, right?
Of course, yes, everything does. Absolutely. None of this would advance without all of that additional consultation.
Thank you.
Thanks for clarifying. Okay, so we got the results.
Close and share.
Thank you, Kyle. So our top vote getter, city, local community development corporations and community-based organizations expand farmers markets in the district, possibly at Blunt Park, with 79% of our folks selecting that item. Second, we actually have a tie, and that is city and local community development corporations and anchor institutions support more mobile farmers markets at spaces where feasible. And tied with that, city and local community development corporations and Springfield Food Policy Council explore how to use non-buildable sites for expanded food access. And that was also at 64%, I'm sorry. And the rest kind of ranked fairly even. So I won't continue to read those.
Thanks, B. Okay, so I think we have 4 more polls to go. All right, so.
And I
again,
just want to say thank you for your patience.
Yes,
you know,
thanks for participating.
we really tried to keep this as concise as we could without overwhelming folks. So you can imagine with 150 options to review and consolidate. I thought Catherine and her team did a great job at doing that. But thank you for your patience.
And I think it was David who noted in the chat that maybe food doesn't make sense with community economic development, but we merged categories, you know, based on the staff expertise as well. So we've integrated arts and culture into the community economic development along with food access. So this is in the category of public art and beautification. So this time you get to select your top 3 choices out of 5. The first one is the city, neighborhood councils, and local community development corporations, businesses, and community-based organizations expand the anti-litter beautification campaign and install more public trash cans and provide more frequent emptying. So it sounds similar to the previous one, but it's also building on the existing campaigns. The second option is the city, neighborhood councils, and community-based organizations and residents expand the mural program in the district that Brian lifted up. The third option is to complete and install artwork and signage in the center of the Six Corners roundabout. The fourth option is to create lighting installations, which we've already heard is going to happen, to liven up the area, especially targeting dark and unsafe locations. And then the fifth option is the city, anchor institutions, local community development corporations, and community-based organizations continue to facilitate public art, including creating visual gateways as you enter and exit the Mason Square district. So you get to choose 3 out of these 5 choices for what you would like to see prioritized. Again, nothing will be disappeared out of the plans.
Looks like we have most of our participants responding, so just a few more seconds before I close this poll. We got a question? Stephen?
Yes. First off, you sound like a pilot.
No.
Kyle.
Thank you for joining us today.
What I was concerned about was the Six Corners where there will be artwork. I think that could be a distraction for motorists because people may get so focused on looking at the artwork that they're not paying attention to 5 other avenues merging onto the same place. So,
Okay, Stephen, if you don't want to vote for it, then don't vote for it, but
no,
thank you very
I'm just
much.
I'm just raising that as,
Okay.
a concern, that's all.
All right.
Yeah, and Stephen, I'm gonna encourage you, just put that in the chat. Again, you know, as we've shared, this is what residents have said. So these aren't the ideas of Catherine or Kyle or B or anyone on our team. It really are the ideas that came from residents directly. And we all have varied opinions, so we know that, but there may be a lot of others who agree with you, Kyle, and won't select that. I mean, Kyle, Stephen, and won't select that either, but thank you for sharing your thoughts.
So go ahead, B, and report out the top votes.
Okay, top vote getter. 94% selected this item. The city, neighborhood councils, local community development corporations, businesses, and community-based organizations expand the anti-litter beautification campaign and install more public trash cans and provide more frequent emptying. Our second selection, create lighting installations to liven up the area, especially targeting dark and unsafe locations. And our third selection, city anchor institutions, local community development corporations, community-based organizations continue to facilitate public art, including creating visual gateways as you enter and exit the Mason Square District. Thank you. And one of the reasons we asked the city staff to join us is so you could hear that some of the ideas that residents are speaking about are some of the work that the city has already launched. So this was a great opportunity to not only share your feedback, but also to learn what the city is presently doing or working on or planning to implement in the near future. So it's actually exciting for me to hear Brian and staff's presentation and see that a lot of the feedback that residents have shared is what the city is doing, so that it feels good to have heard what we're doing in Springfield and now selecting some of these very same things.
All right, next up, we have a poll on youth programming.
And so this one, we have only 3 choices, so you get to select 2 out of the 3. The first one is the city and local community development corporations and community-based organizations expand youth-focused programming with an emphasis on growing food and managing land. The second choice is city, along with local partners, perform an audit of existing youth programming provided by the city and other community-based organizations to identify gaps. And the third choice is the city supports expanding youth programming through partnerships with other community groups. So you get to pick 2 out of these 3. And there is going to be a lot of work fleshing out the top solutions that are being advanced. So if anybody wants to get involved in working with us, in a volunteer capacity, you have particular insights on some of these ideas and you feel like you'd really like to help out, we are happy to have to meet with you and take your ideas. Yeah, Stephen, go ahead.
Yeah, I need to tap, right? Yeah, the second question. I have a whole bunch of questions which I'm not going to ask, but could you clarify? Because it seems as though it's just saying taking a survey to get the results, but isn't saying anything about how to approach improving, expanding, or whatever. Thanks.
Right. It's basically saying we're not ready to improve or expand until we understand whether there's a need. So it's focused on seeing if there is a gap in the services that exist and targeting understanding what is the gap. And then once we know what that gap is, the solution would be to fill that gap. So because the study hasn't been done, it's intentionally broad.
And it looks like we've got all of our responses in, so I'm going to go ahead and close. And here are your results.
Thank you, Kyle. Our top vote getter, city supports expanding youth programming through partnerships with other community groups. 93% of vote getters said, vote takers said that. And second, city, local community development corporations and CBOs expand youth-focused programming with an emphasis on growing food and managing land. Thank you for that. Kat, can you tell us how many more polls we have? Or Kyle, I'm sorry.
This is, we've got 3 more, including the next one on neighborhood councils.
So just 3. So this one, you get to pick 2 solutions. There's 3 options. These are related to neighborhood councils. Sorry, Kyle just said that. Neighborhood councils, local community development corporations, and community-based organizations with residents collaborate to identify funding for a permanent fixed meeting space for the neighborhood councils that don't have them. And we're modeled after the Bay Area Neighborhood Council, which is a collaboration with Home City Housing that provides the space for them. So meeting space for neighborhood councils is option 1. Option 2 is the city neighborhood councils and supportive community-based organizations collaborate to complete the renovation of the current Old Hill Neighborhood Council office. And then the third choice is the city neighborhood councils, local community development corporations, and community-based organizations expand resident leadership training programs to prepare the next generation of community leaders. So you get to pick 2 out of these 3 solutions. And again, none of them will be disappeared, but they'll be prioritized.
I think we're waiting for 1 or 2 folks to share their thoughts. So another 20 seconds or so. All right, we're going to close this one. And here are your results.
Thank you, Kyle. Our top vote getter, neighborhood councils, local community development corporations, community-based organizations, and residents collaborate to identify funding for a permanent fixed meeting space for neighborhood councils, modeled after the Bay Area Neighborhood Council, which has a location that they're leasing on Bay Street. So nice space that residents can go to. And that was 79% of folks who selected that item. Second, city, neighborhood councils, and local community development corporations and CBOs expand resident leadership training programs to prepare the next generation of community leaders. And that was 71% of folks selecting that. Thank you.
And again, I want to encourage you all, if you're under the category, if there's a solution that you don't see in the poll, please feel free to put it in the chat. It won't get voted on at this time, but it will become part of the remaining work that we do when we're going out to each neighborhood with each neighborhood specific plan. So we are still accepting additional ideas for solutions. Okay, so this one is a longer one. You have to pick 4 out of 7 choices. This is related to placemaking with a focus on arts and culture. So the first option is the city, local community development corporations, and community-based organizations commit to naming amenities, streets, parks, etc., after local leaders of color. The second option is to develop a wayfinding strategy and implementation plan for Mason Square District. The third option is that the city would work to streamline permitting for placemaking activities. The fourth option is community development corporations, community-based organizations, and the neighborhood councils cultivate a family-friendly Mason Square with multi-generation appeal and attractions. Your fifth option is that the city will collaborate with local partners to expand museum programming and bring performances into district venues. The sixth option is community-based organizations, neighborhood councils, and residents would collaborate on citywide open studio tours, modeled after what they do right now in Indian Orchard, if you're familiar with that. And then your last option, and again, you get to pick 4 out of 7, is the city and neighborhood councils consider neighborhood needs in determining reuse of the former Homer School in the district. Any clarifying questions on those options? So you get to pick 4 out of those 7 placemaking solutions related to arts and culture.
I believe Apolia asked for some clarification on the open studio tours.
So that's a good question. Who does anybody feel like they can explain that really concisely? It's basically I closed my thingy, so I can't see the way it was worded, but
I'll read it out one more time
okay,
for
thank
everybody.
you.
So community-based organizations, neighborhood councils, and residents collaborate for citywide open studio tours modeled after the Indian Orchard.
I can speak to that a little bit. Indian Orchard, the Indian Orchard Mills was converted into light industry and art studio space. And periodically they'll have open houses where the artists will showcase the work they do. It's a way of, kind of celebrating the artwork. Usually there's food vendors and things like that. I haven't been in years, but I live in Ward 8, so I'm a little familiar with Indian Orchard and what goes on there. So looking for ways to do a similar thing in the Mason Square area would be that poll question, at least as far as I understand that.
That's correct. Thanks, Derek, for doing that. Appreciate it.
We have a question from Stephen. You want to go ahead and raise that?
Yeah, the neighborhood council that you mentioned that is operating across from the cemetery. You've held one of your meetings there, and I've been there on a few occasions, and practically every time I went, they had a different event held by different organizations, and if they even have a weekly exercise and other classes that are going on ongoing basis. And I think copying that would really benefit all of the neighborhood councils. I just wanted to ask. Thanks.
Thanks, Stephen. Has everybody completed the poll?
Yes, we're going to close it now. And here are your results. Top 4.
Okay, and our top items selected. City and neighborhood councils consider neighborhood needs in determining the reuse of the former Homer Street School. That was 75% of folks selecting that. Second, CDCs, CBOs, community-based organizations, and neighborhood councils cultivate a family-friendly Mason Square with multi-generational appeal and attractions. That was 69% of vote getters, takers. I'm thinking elections, I don't know why. And our third selection, city collaborate with local partners to expand museum programming and bring performances into the district venues. And our next choice, I just want to make sure I'm scrolling here to see all of them, is develop wayfinding strategy and implementation plan for the Mason Square district. So thank you for your feedback.
So we have just one more, Kyle, or 2 more?
The last one.
All right, last poll. Thank you all so much for sticking with us through this process and for participating. It's great. So this is general systems change under the category of arts and culture. So we have what we're asking you to do is rank the 3 options by 1, 2, 3. I'm not sure why we changed the poll, but we did. So you get to pick your first, your second, and third. So the first one is that the city would expand community policing throughout the district. The second choice is the city, state, and local community development corporations and community-based organizations collaborate to assure expanded access to mental health services. And then the third option is the city improves 311 and develops a community city online dashboard. So we want you to rank these. What's your top one of these, your second and your third? And thank you again, all of you who are putting comments in the chat. It's really helpful. We're saving the chat. So it's becoming part of, just like the participation at a resident meeting or raising your hand and talking, that we're documenting everything. So we appreciate you sharing your thoughts either in the chat or out loud.
All right. I think we have everybody, but I know that some folks have come and gone. So let's just give another 20 seconds or so before we close our final poll for the night.
Yeah, Kyle, looks like we have everyone.
Is that everybody? Okay. And here it is. And your results.
Okay, two top results. With 100% of folks selecting these two items. The city, state, and local community development corporations.
We got pretty good turnout for this meeting as opposed to the other ones. This is the best turnout so far, which is good.
I'm sorry, Tina. I'm gonna mute you. Thank you. So again, top two items selected, city, state, and local community development corporations and community-based organizations collaborate to ensure expanded access to mental health services. Everyone who participated in the vote has selected that item. And number two, city improves 311 and develop a community city online dashboard. And again, everyone has also selected that item.
I think everybody had to select them, but so I think you have to look at the thicker blue line.
Okay, so those
Yeah.
both came in with unanimous. So did some folks overvote? Probably. So from my view, I can only see the results. I'm not sure what you guys see.
Yeah.
Kyle and I see something a little different than
Oh,
you.
I see. Okay. All right. Yeah.
So Beatrice, can you see the color code at the bottom of the poll? The priority one is the lighter blue, the priority two is darker blue, and the priority three is the orange.
Yep.
So you're right in saying that for B and C, that 100% of the people on this Zoom voted or prioritized, whereas only 87% prioritized A.
Yep.
But if you look at the lighter blue, the number one priority is B.
Yeah.
See how long the lighter blue line is?
Yeah. City,
Okay.
state, and local CDCs and CBOs collaborate to assure expanded access to mental health services.
Right. And then on C, the longer line is the blue. So the majority of people prioritize that as number two.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
And A is almost tied equally with priority. I think priority one is a little longer. It looks like that
Yeah.
line's a little longer than the blue and orange.
Gotcha.
Thanks, Timothy.
No problem.
So thank you all for completing the polls and assisting with prioritizing the solutions. We do have, you were so efficient. We do have 15 minutes for additional conversation with the city staff who are here. And again, it's a great opportunity for you to ask questions from all the staff from the Office of Planning and Economic Development. So please, the floor is open. And also you can raise additional solutions by putting them in the chat or raising your hand and we will write them down.
Catherine, if I could just say, I was thrilled to see some of the priorities in such alignment with many of the issues that the city has been contemplating putting forward, especially those around trash collection and litter, and certainly public art and cultural issues as well. So again, thank you to everybody for taking the time to go through that process. I know it wasn't easy, but you know, having your input and prioritizing what we've heard from the community is exceedingly helpful. Thank you again.
And I see Opalia's comments in that we have to reevaluate community policing and talk about building positive relationships between Black and brown communities and the police. And so thank you for sharing those thoughts. And Priscilla has asked the question of their own thoughts as to how youth can play a role in these community changes. Yes, the youth, you know, it's coming up in a lot of the resident engagement meetings was how do we involve youth and engage youth to get involved in changes. So any additional thoughts we would love to hear, but as I said, you know, to get an idea into a Zoom poll, you have to chop it way down. So these ideas will be, you know, fleshed back out, expanded. We have doing research to help explain what the implementation could look like. We're going to have little one-pagers on these solutions, as well as a detailed grid of all the solutions, who could be a lead implementer, what are some possible funding sources, what's an appropriate timeline, you know, how are these things going to advance? So there's still a lot of work to do, but this is really great to help us make the initial priorities. Stephen, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, sorry to be commenting so much, but since it's so quiet. Two things. One is, it seems as though more emphasis is placed on incarcerating repeat offenders than having options for these repeat offenders once they are back out in the community. And I was speaking with some police officers who attended the McKnight Neighborhood Council block party in June. And they were like really listening to what I was saying about some approaches that could be used to bring the young people into internship programs. For example, if you are in college and you studying medicine, maybe you could get credits if you were to accompany on an organized schedule the EMS responders, so that they can actually see what happens, like when someone is in dire need of assistance to save their lives, so that they could, you know, really get and maybe even assist, let's say, the ambulance attendants in providing them with some of the help they may need in servicing that person, or in situations where their lives may not be endangered, like a shootout or whatever. But when police are responding to situations that may not result in, not that people will know ahead of time whether it will be a shootout or not, but where they can actually be there to see the kind of collaboration that goes on between those first responders and the people who may be having an event. To give you an example, someone from a
can I just
home-
stop you for a second, Stephen? Because
Sure.
we're really trying to focus on community and economic development for this meeting. We weren't focusing on the policing issue. Definitely we want to document it, but I mean, I want to let you finish talking, but if we could just try to stay focused on the community and economic development for this meeting, because we have the city staff here. We could organize a meeting focused on with the police department, but the neighborhood investment plans did not really deal with policing, public safety, because it's a whole area that's separate in terms of the police department. You know, we have some recommendations about the neighborhoods wanted to bring up community policing, but we really didn't get into the whole questions about how should the police be staffed and whether there should be additional mental health practitioners working with the police through this process.
And I appreciate what you said, and I'm not offended by your response, so please don't think I am. But if we can start engaging the youth in more positive activities, then maybe businesses will feel more comfortable operating, because you have a reduction in robberies or crime. You'll also have a reduction in home break-ins, And once you have a safer community, once you have a safer streets, you have a safer city, whereby you'll have economic development expanding, because businesses especially will feel more reassured that they could actually establish their businesses there or expand their businesses because of the reduction in crime. So that was the main thing I was trying to get to. Thank you.
Catherine, I want to speak to Stephen's prior comment about the Bay Area Neighborhood Council and some of the events that they've been holding. And I just wanted to make clear that some of those neighborhood councils do get regular community development block grant allocations to fund some of their operating costs and to run events. And we've been able to beef up some of their budgets recently with an MVP grant from the state. And now, more importantly, each of the neighborhood councils, regardless of what area they're in, are going to get $100,000 of ARPA funds to program to utilize it to do some programming and projects that are tailored to each individual neighborhood's needs and wants. So one, I wanted to kind of acknowledge the Bay Area Neighborhood Council has been doing a really good job with public using their fund for programming that will benefit their neighborhood and also engage new members, but also say that we're hoping to see more of that kind of programming across all the neighborhoods through that funding that's being put out now.
Thanks, Tina.
Catherine, I just wanted to add on to Stephen's last comment with regards to public safety. And I completely agree with what Stephen's saying. You know, data clearly indicates that increased funding in mental health services, youth development, housing, and workforce development all reduce crime. And, you know, those are clearly components of neighborhood economic development plans, and we should be looking at all of that.
Great. Thank you so much for clarifying. I really appreciate that. And I saw that lots of people were giving him a thumbs up in the chat. So thank you for that. Any other comments or questions that people would like to share? We don't have to keep you here for the whole 6 more minutes, but we really appreciate your time. We want to make sure you know that next Wednesday, same time, 5:30 to 7, same Zoom meeting, no passcode required. We're having the final of these Zoom meetings, which is going to be focused on transportation solutions. And we will have Chris Signoli from the Department of Public Works, along with Sandra Sheehan, who's the director of the Pioneer Valley Transit Authority, as well as some of the planners who work for the Pioneer Valley Transit Authority. So we'll be doing the same process, welcoming, giving them a chance to talk about what they do, how they do it, and then we'll have some polls so you can weigh in on the top solutions related to transportation, including transit.
My last comment, Catherine, is to give a shout out to both you and B in terms of keeping this moving and getting it together, as well as Kyle. So thank you very much.
Lots of pre-planning, Tim. Thank you. I was just going to say, I want to thank the city staff for joining us. We really appreciate your time, your willingness to share. For those residents on here, I know the process can feel a little bit arduous, but I hope you also walked away feeling like I connected and engaged with the city. Right now in this space, you have the city's chief economic development officer listening, hearing. So we really need folks to take advantage of opportunities where you're in a space, you can verbalize, you know, as Stephen has shared and others have shared, your thoughts, your opinions, your concerns, and they're hearing it first person, firsthand. It's not vetted. So we really need people to understand this is a great opportunity and the access is amazing. And throughout all of these, we had Jerry McCafferty at our housing one, at Parks and Rec, we had Pat Sullivan. So these are our chiefs of staffs for these city departments. Folks, I really want others to join. We've done a lot of outreach, and it could be because it's the summer, I don't know. So we're really hoping that you'll help us get the word out.
And we are planning to have a final in-person district-wide meeting. It's tentatively scheduled for Saturday, August 12th. It would be noon to 2 at maybe the Mason Square Library somewhere. It would be a lunch meeting, and it would be, you know, again, a last chance to come see all the solutions in all the categories and see how they've been prioritized so far, and another chance to weigh in on additional prioritization, but also to be together in person. So save that date if you can, noon to 2 on Saturday, August 12th. Yes, Priscilla.
Hi, I had a question and a comment, but I didn't know how to really put it in the chat short enough. So I work with youth, and I was just wondering, like, is there someone to connect with in terms of just like keeping updated with changes? Because I primarily work with youth to create change in the community through photos and captions. And their last community exhibition talked about creating change in their community via park cleanups. And I know they want to further that work, and there's going to be a new cycle coming up. And I just really want them to feel like there is intention behind their work and really getting connected with community partners. So I was just wondering if there's someone to connect with to make sure that, you know, at least the youth I'm working with really are involved in the changes that we were discussing here.
So does anybody from the city want to suggest a youth partner? I was thinking about Gardening the Community, which is a youth empowerment program through Urban Ag. I think Liz Ogilvy at Gardening the Community would be a good person to connect with. Does anybody else have any other suggestions?
I would just suggest that, you know, with regards to this, this is basically, you know, neighborhood initiatives. Advancing it to the neighborhood office through Ed Whitley would be helpful. And then we could reach back out to the organizations that we work with and get back to you as to, you know, who would be appropriate for the activity that you're possibly looking at.
And to piggyback off of that, every neighborhood council is in need of help in reference to capacity. So if we would love to have the youth get involved with our neighborhood councils. They're looking for more younger people to come in and to assist them in their endeavors. So feel free, I could send you a list of all the council addresses, contact names, and meeting addresses and all that stuff. So.
And Priscilla, in the chat, Desi Jackson with the Old Hill Neighborhood Council has put in his email as well as a phone number. And he also does work with Stone Soul. So there's a phone number there and email. So that's another good opportunity too.
And there's YouthWorks. I think it's YouthWorks and the New England Farm Workers as a funding program for youth for the summer. But does anybody have a contact for YouthWorks?
And they're at capacity, but I have a contact with Mass Hire Youth Services Department with Phyllis Gideon. I can get you I'll put her information in the chat.
Thanks, Desi. It's 7 o'clock. Stephen, you have your hand up. Do you want to have the last word? It'd be kind of
Well, I
fitting.
just wanted to say, since I've been to most of your meetings, I think they were, I really have to compliment you, Catherine, and your staff. You guys have been great. And I really like the discussions that were taking place when people got together in groups. And I'm really encouraged by so much dialogue on youth. And I really look forward to that police, that's what you were saying, that you're supposed to have another meeting with the police and youth. I may have misunderstood that, but I think that's one of the best ways for this city to be safer. And I look forward to that meeting. Thank you. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. And we hope to see you next Wednesday, same Zoom meeting room, same Zoom time.
Fewer poll questions.
Yes. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Catherine and Kyle, if you don't mind staying on.
Sure, we'll stay for a few minutes to debrief. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your evening.
Thanks. I don't know if Tim or Brian wants to stay, or Tina or Ed.
You don't have to, though.
You don't have to.
Stop record, please.
1 second, I'm sorry.